This was the first picture that I took of my painting, so you didn't get to see any of these sketch layers or the underpainting. We're moving on to the actual process of me painting out all of these leaves in the background. The original image was actually a lot brighter, and when my art teacher printed it out, it darkened a whole lot, which I'm actually rather appreciative of because it meant I didn't have to paint as many details. So this area is very dark, and there are just a few lighted areas of leaves, which I'm painting now. This part was very meditative because I have my reference off to the side and I'm looking from that back down to my painting, going back and forth, mixing colors, trying to match the image. And it was just a process of turn the brain off and go. And here I'm starting on the top part where the sun kind of created a glare on the leaves. Here I'm using a lot of blue and purple because the lighting created a sort of illusion to make it look very misty, and it was further back in the background, so naturally it wouldn't be as in focus. So I'm really just dabbling in a bunch of different colors, again looking from my reference and back to the painting, trying to match the colors and just zoning out. This part my art teacher commented on because as she was trying to take a picture of the painting, she was confused why it seemed like there was a glare, but there wasn't a glare on the painting, it was just the effect of the illusion of the blue paint versus the green paint. Next, I finished up the barn, and again, this is where the darkening of the image came in clutch, because in the actual image, you can see so much detail of what's inside the barn, which isn't much, it's just a lot of rotting wood and that sort of thing. But you can actually see through to the other side of the barn because there's a hole straight through to the back. But because of the darkening of the image, it kind of just showed up as a black void, so I painted that. would also be a good time to acknowledge that throughout this entire painting, I used 4 colors of paint: phthalo blue, fire red, primary yellow, and white. There's no black in this painting, and there's no additional mixing besides those 4 colors. So between the leaves, the grass, and the barn, it is just these 4 colors, all in different ratios. So the more brown looking colors here are just a mixture of the phthalo blue and fire red that create kind of a muddy purple. Once I finished this little shed off to the side, this was the next step in progress. And then it went back to school, and then I got sick again, came back home with me for another week, and this is where I really sat down and started on the leaves up top. This was when I was starting to get a little stressed because the deadline for the competitions was coming up, and I was still not even halfway done with this painting. So I really cracked down and did all of the leaves up top because I was like, if I can't even finish the whole thing, I at least need to have these leaves in. For these leaves, I was thinking less of these are trees and more how do the shapes appear in the image, which is how I was able to capture the different spaces of light between the leaves and all of the different shading from tree to tree. Because when you're not restricting yourself to thinking of what the object is and more what the object looks like, it's a lot easier to depict them properly. And then these are the steps of progress. And this is one of my favorite areas just because of how the light shows through the trees and you get more contrast between the really blue greens and the more yellow leaning greens. Once I finished up these dapples of light, I started on the grass. This was the point where I stopped recording and only took pictures of my progress because I was just racing to get it done and didn't want to bother with setting up my camera. But it was a lot of dappling and a lot of matching colors, but eventually we got to the finished product with the reference up there in the corner.